Stretch by Karie Willyeard and Mistick. There's nothing as enjoyable as having a good long stretch and yawn after a hard day's work. And the pleasures of stretching needn't be limited to the physical realm. At work, you can stretch your mind by looking for creative solutions, being proactive about developing tasks that really interest you and interacting as much as possible with your coworkers and, during breaks, with other friends and acquaintances. Though fun, stretching is not always easy. Many office workers end up a crumpled, dispirited heap, gazing listlessly at their computer screens without any idea of what to do. It's almost as if they're just waiting to get fired. So how do you avoid this and become an alert and excited person instead? To keep stretching your work possibilities, maintain control, keep your options open and set goals. Before entering the professional world, you are surrounded by parents and teachers who can point you in the right direction and straighten you out if you get off track. But after college, you're more or less on your own, even though there's still a great deal of growing, or stretching, that needs to be done. That's why there are 3 stretch imperatives that every professional hoping to stay at the top of the game should keep in mind. The first stretch imperative is to remember that you are in control. If you're unhappy with a job, it can be easy to blame your boss or be too lazy to do anything about it. But this isn't good for you or your employer. Let's look at a typical career. You graduate from college and decide to pick up a job in construction because you thought you might enjoy working with your hands. But after a while you realize that you'd rather work with people. What do? You take control and find another job, this time as a camp counselor. But here you realize you'd rather work with adults instead of kids, so you decide to work in sales instead. And this leads us to the second stretch imperative: give yourself options and broaden your horizons so that you have a healthy amount of possible opportunities. Let's say you hate your boss in the sales department but you don't have the qualifications for anything else. Instead of feeling sorry for yourself, you take action. You sign up for adult education classes and earn a 2nd or 3rd degree, such as an MBA. And this brings us to the third stretch imperative: setting goals. These don't have to be related to your career, they just need to be realistic goals that will help you stay on track, especially during tough times. Everyone hits a rough patch at one point or another in their career. When you hit one, remember that gaining experiences is always productive and will help you in the search for what's right for you. Be open to learning on the job and listening to feedback. If you've worked at enough office jobs, then you're surely familiar with the unhappy employee who dozes off at his desk, despite a veritable drip feed of caffeine. No one wants to be this employee. In fact, the best kind of employee is the polar opposite of dissatisfied and slumberous. She's alert and engaged, learning on the job and continuing to develop her skill set. If you have a full-time job, then you know how hard it can be to continue your education in the small amount of spare time you do have. That's why you must learn on the job. Let's look at Jonah, who got a job as a teacher, but began to worry after realizing how difficult his work really was. He knew he needed to improve, but he had no time to get more training. So he took matters into his own hands. Jonah performed a self-assessment and realized that he needed to be more organized, so he began interviewing other teachers on how he could better structure his class. He also recognized that too much class time was spent with him talking, and that students learned more when they had time to practice. So he shortened his lectures and created more practical exercises that allowed his students to develop their skills. The results were great. Jonah is now training other teachers and on track to becoming the next school principal. The key is that Jonah was open to change and feedback, a quality that is essential to keeping yourself from getting stuck in a career rut. Chris, a frustrated executive trainer who was having trouble connecting with his trainees, is another good example of the benefits of openness. Despite the trouble he was having, Chris remained open with his boss and receptive to the feedback he received. This allowed Chris and his boss to work together and pinpoint the problem. Eventually it became clear that Chris wasn't listening to his trainees. He'd developed a habit of criticizing their ideas before they could fully explain themselves. By being open to change and feedback, Chris learned that being a leader isn't about him, it's about being part of a team. And once he began listening to his team members, his leadership skills greatly improved. Job opportunities come with networking and gaining new experiences. It's generally a good idea to give yourself options. Most people don't apply to only one college or send out applications to only one job. They put their eggs in multiple baskets. Use the same approach for your career and increase your options by utilizing a broad network of contacts. Everyone has at least two different kinds of contacts: professional colleagues and personal friends. Both can be used to provide more options as your career progresses.